On a snowy night, I arrived at the parking lot of the gas station where I was employed for the overnight shift from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. I had been working at this job for several months by then. While I wasn't particularly fond of the job, finding alternative employment proved challenging. Considering the circumstances and other aspects of my life, the night shifts conveniently fit into my personal schedule. Nevertheless, each night I entered fatigued, grappling to navigate through every shift. I pulled into the parking lot and positioned my car next to my coworker's vehicle, the sole other one present. Afterward, I entered the building and took over my coworker's shift. He departed a few minutes later, leaving me alone for the remainder of the night. On the desk, my manager had left a list of tasks to be accomplished. Upon reviewing it, I realized the workload wasn't particularly heavy. I estimated that completing all the assignments would take no more than an hour. To stave off the fatigue that typically set in when I grew increasingly tired, I opted to postpone starting the tasks for as long as possible. Seated behind the desk around midnight, I observed a car pulling into the station. Glancing out the window, I noticed an aged SUV stationed by one of the pumps. Given the ongoing snowfall, most people weren't venturing out, making occasional customers the norm. Returning my focus to the phone, I scrolled through videos, losing track for about 10 minutes. Upon redirecting my attention outside, the SUV remained parked by the pump. Despite the appearance that it should be refueling, the headlights were off and the doors were shut. Concerned, I rose from my seat and approached the window, scanning both sides of the building. No one was in sight. If they had been inside their car for the past 10 minutes with the engine off, they must be enduring freezing conditions. The snowy, windy, and cold weather made me genuinely anxious for their well-being. I heightened my awareness for the next few minutes, eagerly anticipating any movement behind the darkened windows or the return of someone to their car. However, to my surprise, there was no sign of activity. The vehicle seemed deserted, stationed next to the fuel pump. After contemplating the situation, I donned my jacket and ventured outside. The biting cold affirmed my suspicion. It was unlikely for anyone to endure such temperatures without the car running or lingering outside for an extended period. Hastening toward the vehicle, I scrutinized the surroundings before pressing my face against the window, attempting to peer inside. "Hello, is anyone in there? Just making sure everything's okay," I called out, yet there was no visible presence inside. Although the visibility was limited, I was reasonably confident that the car was unoccupied. Now, even more perplexed, I retraced my steps and surveyed the desolate gas station parking lot before embarking on my return. With my gaze now diverted from the car, I fixated on the ground and observed footprints in the snow leading toward the building, not directly to the front, but somewhat to the side. Glancing back, I traced their origin to the car. However, the biting cold made me reluctant to delve deeper without warming up first. Seeking refuge indoors, I activated the petite heater beside the counter and held my hands in front of it for warmth. After a mere 30 seconds to a minute inside, a sudden thud reverberated through the building from behind me. Whirling around, I discerned nothing, prompting me to stride around the counter toward the rear. On the floor, I discovered pools of murky water, resembling melted snow from someone's boots. A shiver ran down my spine as I approached the entrance to the back room, turning the corner toward the supply area. In the dimness, behind one of the shelves, I discerned the silhouette of a tall figure. With broad shoulders and a sizable, unkempt beard, their gaze was fixed directly on me. For a brief moment, my heart seemed to halt, and then, overcoming the initial shock, my instinct led me back to the counter. I can't explain why. Perhaps the surprise left me momentarily paralyzed. Staring at the entrance to the supply room for what felt like an eternity, I finally mustered the courage to discreetly grab the store phone and dial the police, pleading for assistance in hushed tones. The ensuing 10 minutes dragged on, marking the most unsettling moments of my life as I waited. Strangely, there was no sound or movement from the supply room, intensifying my anxiety. The mysterious figure never emerged to confront me. This year, at the age of 16, I landed my inaugural job as a delivery driver for Pizza Hut. Given my age, it was a part-time gig that I juggled a few days a week after school. I opted for Pizza Hut specifically because it tends to be less hectic these days, and I wanted to avoid the constant stress that can come with a job. The initial months breezed by without much excitement. The routine was monotonous, and most days blurred together in forgettable sequences. However, amidst the mundane, I had an unforgettable experience. It happened on a Friday, just before closing time. We received an order that required delivery, and although the destination wasn't too distant, it led me through a part of town I seldom traversed. This particular neighborhood stood apart from the others, lacking the abundance of houses and stores that typically populated my usual routes. I rarely had reason to venture into this area. As I navigated through the unfamiliar streets, the GPS guided me through the neighborhood, steering me down seemingly every road until it directed me to the designated spot. Yet something felt amiss. On my left, a modest row of 6 or 7 houses lined the street, while on the right, a path led to a park. The GPS waypoint appeared on the right side, prompting me to verify the location by searching the address on Google. Confirming it was indeed the park's actual address, I parked on the roadside to retrieve the pizza. Exiting the vehicle, I approached the pathway, only to realize it was just a walking trail, not leading to the expected playground where a group of kids had supposedly ordered pizza. Instead of children, I noticed a man sitting on a bench a little further down, waving at me. Slightly hesitant, I walked towards him, observing the peculiar setting. As I neared, he stood up and began searching his wallet for cash. The unusual circumstance of an individual alone on a nighttime walking path awaiting a pizza delivery raised my skepticism. Engaging in the transaction, I greeted him, but as we interacted, he started talking to himself, repeatedly uttering phrases like, "I'm okay," and "everything's going to be okay." This behavior prompted me to inquire about his well-being, feeling a sense of concern. He fell silent and raised his gaze to meet mine. In his eyes, I discerned an unsettling blend of fear and helplessness, emotions I had never truly witnessed in someone's expression before. His look alone sent a surge of adrenaline through me. As I turned around, my eyes locked with those of a towering figure donned in a cloth mask. Holding a knife, he compelled me to empty my pockets and discard everything on the ground. Obediently, I complied, my terror intensifying as he forcibly guided both me and the man from the bench off the path and into the dense woods, displaying no interest in the scattered belongings. We traversed the wooded area for several minutes, venturing so deep that the path's light became a distant memory. Abruptly, the man beside me shoved me to the ground and bolted in the opposite direction. Surprisingly, the masked man left me unharmed, pursuing the fleeing individual. Swiftly, I regained my footing and sprinted back to the path, the sounds of the chase fading into the forest. Within minutes of my call, the police arrived, but both assailants had vanished, and as far as I know, remain at large. I couldn't fathom the motives of the abductor, especially since he showed no interest in my wallet or possessions. The lack of such a motive heightened my unease, hinting at a sinister intent. Ironically, the self-serving act of the other victim both ensnared me in a perilous situation and facilitated my escape from it. While I couldn't fault him for seeking an escape, the low tactic of pushing me down leaves me with mixed feelings, less sympathy for his plight, yet an acknowledgement that his self-preservation inadvertently spared me from an uncertain fate.